Okay. Well, I will make best use of people's time then by getting underway. Let's see here. Okay. Well, let's get going then. Happy Halloween, everybody, and welcome to the October 31st, 2024 edition of the Technical Advisory Council of the Confidential Computing Consortium. We check in with each other every couple of weeks to help promote the adoption of confidential computing. And we have a more technical take on that than other parts of the consortium. But if you're new here, there are other places to interact and contribute, and you can see all of that on Confidential Computing's website. Because we have a number of companies here, we do abide by the antitrust policy, and you can read that at linuxfoundation.org/antitrust-policy. Today, we have a number of announcements as we head towards the end of the year. I know it's still technically October, but with holidays in November and December, we have very few meetings remaining. So most of what we're going to focus on today are wrap-ups for the end of 2024 and planning for the beginning of 2025. I also traded some emails with Caroline just yesterday, and she's got some answers from questions that she took during her tech talk. So we'll come around to that after the 2025 planning. And then check in real quick on the budget. We presented that to the board at the last board meeting, and I think absent some significant changes, that's what we'll be operating with for next year. Any other agenda items people were hoping to have today? Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward then. I don't think we'll have votes, but we do all have something to report on today. So I'm just going to take a quick check on my end. I think Rianne already confirmed that we have quorum. See, Paul and Catherine. I don't think we will have Howard. I'm here. Do we have?
Hey, I'm here.
Henry? Oh, wonderful. Hey. I know this is always a bad time for a meeting. So
yeah,
it
just took some time for internal decision about the sponsorship. So yeah, anyways, is it possible to schedule like a one-on-one with you then? Like quickly catch up and
yeah.
Since I've been AWOL like for half a year, I think.
Well, we always thought you were here in spirit. It's just we know it's been a time. So yeah, feel free to email me, and we can get something set up.
Sure.
Okay. I don't think we've got Henry or Kevin though. Alec, yes. Fritz, yes. Yash, yes. And Mingshen I saw as well, right? Yes. Okay. So
Simon
great attendance.
Up on your Intel, behind your Intel name. Are we losing you, or what does it mean?
Sorry, say that again.
I see Simon Johnson popped up behind your name. Are we just having a second vote representative, or are we losing you to?
No. I'm still here. It's a lot of companies will designate an alternate.
It's just your alternative. Okay.
Yeah. So Simon actually preceded me as Intel's rep for the first couple years.
I thought he was there. It was the new name, so that was already there. Sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. Okay. But because we all don't actually know each other necessarily, if you're new here, if you haven't introduced yourself before, feel free to come off of mute. Let us know how you like to be addressed with your pronouns, where you're joining from, and your interest in confidential computing. I think I recognize just about everybody's name here, so always feel free to jump into the conversation. Everybody's welcome to contribute constructively here. I'll move us along. I guess last time we focused on the budgets, and then we also had another update from the brand repositioning working group. And as always, these minutes are recorded in our governance repo, and we do appreciate people coming through to do a review on the PR that adds the minutes. A lot of times we'll get names wrong or affiliations wrong or miss something. So appreciate the crowdsourced effort to keep the minutes clean. Okay, I'll hand it over to Rian here.
Yes, I've never been great at marketing, but let me market the opportunity to be the chair or co-chair of this illustrious committee. We have several nominations in already. The nominations close tomorrow, so please do raise your hand if you're interested. The way to do that is you just go to the mailing list, look for the nomination email, and just reply to all and say, I want to stand, and add a small bio so people know what you're standing for. And if you don't have that email, you're looking for more information, you can directly contact me. And then also very important, the general member reps for the governing board consist of representatives from CCC general members, and there's also 3 positions available. So if you're interested to be on the governing board as a general member, please also throw your hat in the ring there. If you don't have that invitation, I've sent it to the mailing list for all general members as well as the voting reps for all general members. But if you haven't received it and you're interested, please reach out. You have today and tomorrow to do that.
All right, thanks. And yeah, I'll just reassert that there's no better way to get involved than to put your hand up when volunteer options come up like this. So let's see as broad a participation as possible. Who would like to take KubeCon? Sal, maybe?
Real quick. We covered these in our last tax. I just wanted to make a note for anyone that didn't see it. We're totally ready to go for KubeCon. Everything's gone to print. But if you jump just to the next page on this, that's a great quick reference, and I'll be sending this out by email beforehand. This is everything tied to confidential computing that's live at KubeCon, which again, that's quite a lot of content. I'm glad to see it. So if you follow this through, you can go from workshops to pretty much every aspect of CCC that's relevant to the cloud. Looking forward to it in less than 2 weeks now. But I think that's it for KubeCon.
Hey, great job pulling this together. It's nice to have everything consolidated on a one page like that.
Yeah, that's your KubeCon cheat code. And then I've got a couple of great updates. We have 3 mentorship opportunities available within the CCC portfolio right now. I'm making some final updates to the GitHub page so that it's easy for a potential mentor to jump in and understand. And I'm going to start doing the public advertising for those on Monday of next week, with some physical and in-person advertising at KubeCon as well, because I think that's likely where we'll find some good mentorship leads for these. But we've got 1 for ILET, we've got 2 for Verizon. So these are great. Thank you all for getting these in. And if there are any other projects that want to submit, we are doing mentorships as a rolling basis. We can get started whenever you want to get started. So I think that's
Great.
good for them. Yes, and each of these just quickly outlines the current mentorships that are available. Feel free to jump to the next slide. For each of these, I gave a description. So I gave a talk at Sauce Fusion last week, which I covered every single one of our projects, including Manatee, our new one, and these projects, these mentorship opportunities. As soon as that reporting is available, I will be getting that out as well. But I think that's it for mentorships for now.
Great. Thanks. And I don't remember if Manatee was officially up and running in our last meeting, may have been, but anyway, they've got a cool logo. There's a blog post up about the project. So if you haven't checked that out, please take a look at that and maybe share that with your professional networks. Awesome. Maybe Fritz, you'd like to talk about this?
Yeah, please. I also, let me put this in chat again in case someone joined, since I added it in the notes. So we have a confidential computing dev room again at FOSDEM on February 1. That's a Saturday morning now. So we are prime times this year and not stuck at Sunday evening right before or whenever everyone already left. And so we have half a day on Saturday morning. And then we're currently planning a social event from the CCC side on Saturday evening. And then on Sunday mornings, there will be an attestation dev room that will kind of fill in the picture of what we maybe couldn't get at in the CC dev room. And I think then the attestation folks are also considering to do on Friday a broader event. So that means that we have all the fun and games at FOSDEM in Brussels. So if you haven't already considered coming, you should definitely consider coming now. And I put the call for proposals in the chat. So yeah, if you have something cool, open source to share, to talk about, please do. And then what I didn't say yet is we're also probably going to have a stand there. So at least I will submit that proposal soon, or Sada and me will submit that soon, which will mean that we hopefully have a desk in the general room where people can drop by and learn about the consortium and maybe also learn about our projects. So anyone who is there, please speak up so that we can reach you in case you want to join that stand and help out, informing people about the consortium in general, because I think that's not something we can do with one person. Hopefully we have several of us there so that we can rotate a little bit and spread the word about the CCC and hopefully get some more faces and folks into the meetings and into the projects. So yeah, I think lots of stuff that's happening, but hopefully all the cool things.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And I know I'm going to try to prioritize getting there this year. I haven't been able to make it in the past. So if others on the TAC could get there, it'd be great to meet people face to face. I'm guessing most of us have never actually met in person before, so that'll be a cool opportunity.
Yeah, definitely cool. Reach out to me. I'm definitely there, and we can try to think on that. Be nice.
Okay. Let's see here. So I think the next thing is we're going to jump into our objectives and key results. So as introduction for people who haven't regularly been here, we try to make sure that we're doing something material when we get together, so that there's some measurable outcomes by the end of the year. And so each of us took some key result or some objective area to help advance during the course of the year. In the case of some companies, we had representatives change, so there's never always the perfect case, but I think we've had some good progress this year, and so we're going to run down the TAC list here and get a check-in from people. And I'm not quite sure how we got this ordering, but it looks like Yash is up first, and Yash has been working on the mentoring program. So why don't I see here? Will it just drop me down to the objective? There we go. Okay, so we've sought out and welcomed new contributors, and part of that is the mentoring programs. Go ahead, Yash.
So the key results identified in July were not finalized. They were still in the draft stage, but I think they're good. So I left some updates today. The CCC was well represented by Sal at least 14 conferences. You can find a link to the conferences they attended in the project support matrix spreadsheet. But a lot of the other TAC members and GB members were also present at all of the large conferences. So Open Source Summit, Confidential Computing Summit in June, and then KubeCon, and then also the Mini Summit and Linux Plumbers. So it was a very active year, a lot of travel, a lot of in-person meetings, which was good. On the mentorship side, things have been slow from my end since June, but we were able to get the mentoring documentation completed by May, and then we had reached out to the outreach committee. Sal had opened 10 issues on the CCC projects requesting for mentorship opportunities, but it was slower than we expected. Again, complete credit to Sal here. They have been on top of this for the last 2 months, and then 3 days ago, as they shared earlier in the call, we have 3 new mentorship opportunities, and I will work with Rian to get those uploaded on the LFX portal. And yeah, we'll have links ready for Sal to share at KubeCon, and hopefully we can get lots of mentees excited for this. So when we started the year, I think I had mentioned that the goal was to get 2 or 3, and we have 3.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is a very good result, and we hope to build on this. Again, a lot of the credit should go to Sal. They have been on top of this for the last 3 months. Thank you so much.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Sal. But thanks also, Yash, because I know you were also driving on this throughout the year, and it's always difficult to get busy maintainers to sign up to participate in this mentorship program. So I think the fact that we've got 3 proposals out there is perfect, and I'm heartened to see that.
Yeah, I want to say a quick but a big thank you to the maintainers who came through with this. Especially for this, we wanted to take a moment to make sure that we were communicating to a general project if requesting them to come in and do a scoped work. So it took a week or 2 for us to get these ready to go. But I also think that these mentorships are an incredible opportunity to show that we've got active projects and an active community. This is great for our projects. So thank you so much.
Yeah, great. So there's one other item on here that I don't think we ever explicitly set an owner for, but part of the idea was that as TAC liaisons, we would make sure that the projects, they didn't have stuck issues that we could help facilitate getting unstuck. I think this ended up being I don't know, a fairly detailed or low level objective that we didn't assign, and something that we should think about for next year is, do we really want to, not just do we want to be able to facilitate this kind of assistance to projects, but is it something that we're capable of doing successfully? And we'll come back around to 2025 planning, but maybe as we go through everybody's areas, we can start to tease out some of these points of discussion for next year.
So, sorry, I should probably raise my hand.
Go ahead.
You know what? I'm already talking here. So,
Yeah.
the metric for this actually ties in with one of the other OKRs we had, which was making sure that our community is growing and healthy. And part of it is to make sure that the 10 projects that we have that are now part of the CCC have a README page, have a security page, a contributing page, the OpenSSF badge, and to make sure that the projects themselves are engaged, they are aware that they need to be updated, while we are also making sure that it is healthy. And I think in not enforcing those, but recommending them could also lead to more mentorship opportunities, because I think having those things for each project by itself is a good mentoring opportunity. It's a good way for new contributors to understand what the project is about, and then work towards making sure that it's up to date with all the pages and welcome docs and
Yeah, I like that. I think that sounds like a great thing. We could have a mentee that actually just looked across all the projects instead of spending time with one and just made sure that they're sort of harmonized. That would be a good introduction to open source, because those things are kind of the bread and butter of any project. Okay, so thanks again. Nathaniel, who was representing ARM at the time that this was made, but now represents AMD, I think not present. Nope, Nathaniel is here. Great.
I am here.
So I think between you and David, we kind of sidestepped having an objective for you, but I don't know if there's
Awesome. That's the best kind of objective.
So we'll try to pin you down for 2025, but I don't know if there's a contribution that you want to highlight as we're going through the OKRs here.
I'm going to be working on out of station stuff for the next year.
Okay, great. Well, we'll look forward to that. Next on the list here is Alec, and I think Alec has been our main liaison with the GRC SIG that's focused on a lot of this ecosystem outreach. Alec, want to talk about what you've been working on?
First up, let me see. I don't see that Mark's on the call. If he is, he probably should give us, being the chair of the GRC. But I don't see him on the call, so I'll go. Channeling for Mark, we've had some pretty good success in our continued collaboration with the Cloud Security Alliance, which is kind of a non-governmental compliance organizations. They were one of the first ones to come up with like a framework of controls for making sure that cloud deployments are secure. They have a ton of controls for cryptography and making sure that your keys are up to date and so forth. And what we're trying to do is make them aware of confidential computing. Up until now, they've only been aware of protection of data at rest and data in motion. We're trying to introduce the concepts of protecting data in use and attestation. We've had good success in getting some new controls introduced, and the words data in use now appear in the cloud controls matrix. So any adopters of the cloud control matrix framework, which are a lot of banks and other institutions that do that have to report to governmental agencies to show they're secure, will now see that in there. It's a slow roll, right? Because people adopt the new version of the cloud control matrix over time because it takes a lot of budget to bring your standards up to the latest version. But at least it's in there now. And so when big banks and big institutions that have Sarbanes-Oxley controls around them have to update to the new version of the cloud control matrix, they'll have to confront that and start making decisions about it. Which over the course of time, the idea is it'll drive traffic to the CCC. So that's the good news there. Let's see, collaborate, authoring 2 new documents that inform their publications. Mark and the committee have been working on new documents, so the cloud control matrix counts as one of those. We're working with the attestation SIG to get some new documents approved there. Let's see, 2 more meetings with compliance organizations. We've not had much luck getting traction with NIST. We've had some traction now with the MITRE framework folks, so they're now regular attendees to the meeting. So I think that's a step forward, but we still kind of have to do more to get in touch with NIST, and then produce a document to inform CC ecosystem. That's the security requirements. That's something I need to get back to Olu on, the last one there. So these are good reminders. This is why you have OKRs, is to make sure that things don't fall off the radar. That last one has fallen off the radar, and good reminder there, Dan. I'll follow up with Olu and see if we can get that back top of mind.
All right, great. And I think I hope I'm not mixing my years now, but I think at the beginning of the year, we responded to maybe 3 NIST RFCs.
We have sent in responses to RFCs, but we haven't been able to get the engagement that we're looking for. So it's kind of like, you know, send it into the suggestions box, you drop the mail in there, and then nothing happens. So we're kind of at that stage. Kind of would love to see some responses from them, and haven't seen that yet.
Okay, so we're probably pretty good on this first KR. I think we're doing well with the second KR.
Third KR is good.
Third one's good. Okay, and then this is the one I think you were saying.
Yeah, the last two need work.
Last two. Okay, great. And feel free offline to just kind of summarize that thing, summarize that status in here, or you know, check them done if they're done. Same for everybody else as well for your areas.
You want me to edit the agenda presentation in place, or do you want me to send you a response?
This Google Doc, you're free to edit your section and just update it.
I'll do it.
Okay. Let's see here. Sorry, I was seeing some IMs coming across asking for things. Yes, we can handle that separately, I think. So yeah, updating this, and then oh yeah, so the other thought that I had here is I want to make sure that the GRC SIG is getting enough eyes and hands on keyboards. When I have discussion with stakeholders in my company, there's a lot of appreciation for what we could do with compliance. And I wonder how people think of if we were to make time available on a regular basis to handle GRC working time during the TAC meetings.
I love that suggestion. Let's sync with Mark and see how he feels about that. I want to speak for the chair.
Yeah, so feel free to just take that offer into the next GRC meeting. I'm happy to allocate time. I think that our ability to make other organizations aware of the benefits of confidential computing is one of the main things we're here to do.
Well, Mark is not known for being laconic, so I will expect him to take you up on your generous offer for speaking time.
Excellent. Howard, you know, we just talked about you were necessarily absent for a big chunk of the year. I don't know if there's anything that you want to highlight as we come up on your name here.
I think we can like discuss it on one-on-one, but generally, so I think for last year, my strong suit is, for example, building cross-organization collaboration. So for next year, probably I will still be like focusing on linking CCC with, for example, OCP and LFAI, which I'm also sitting on the board. For topics like I think on the dev room topics like CCC on accelerator, so that kind of topic is what I'm interested in. And we also have a new open source operating system project that also has a confidential computing component, I think. So like building sort of synergy with our project. So that sort of thing will be like my next year goals.
Okay, great. And you said OCP and LFAI.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on OCP. You remind me what that is?
So OCP, I think I mentioned that last year. So OCP Open Compute Project, they have a dedicated security SIG, which has been doing a lot of attestation related work. I think to build a synergy between OCP security SIG and CCC will be very beneficial. And also under OCP, there's open system firmware. So basically, that's the Linux boot. All those folks. I think that's another area that we can build collaboration with.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. And then you also mentioned LFAI.
Yeah.
While you were gone, we had a presentation from the OPIA project, which is under
cool.
LFAI.
Yeah. I think especially with Apple, Apple just recently published their confidential like best practice. I think there will be a lot of interest in actually combining like computational computing for protect all the users' information as well as like apply that to either LLM serving. Yeah, that would be like a really interesting area.
Yeah. And then coming back to that OPIA stuff, the Open Platform for Enterprise AI, since that's part of LFAI, we should think about whether there's some specific collaboration points there.
Yeah, definitely. I think so OPIA is basically focusing on RAG. So I think the like the crossing point will be like to securely compute the embedding model, since the embedding model is relatively small size, and also to serve memory. I think that'll be one of the collaboration points.
Yeah. Okay, great.
I think I agree. I attended the OCB Global Summit last week, and
Mhm.
it is really more than 7,000 people attended. There are so many areas of interest, and security is definitely one of them. So participation in or collaboration with OCB will give a huge visibility to CC and CC TAC.
I think Microsoft has a team has been working in OCP for quite a long time, like for root of trust and attestation, those topics.
Yeah, and IBM too.
Yeah. So
Let me
So,
see if,
so I think
thanks for bringing that up, Zipan. Sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna reach out to the OCP group at Microsoft and see if they want to give a tech talk. So
It's a great idea.
oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for bringing that up.
yeah, and you can somebody from CC can make a presentation in one of the OCB summits, global or local, uh, anytime
Oh,
if you
that's
guys.
a good point. Yes. Definitely.
So
Definitely you should do that.
yeah, exactly. That's easy. Or even if you have some demonstrations, you can the exhibit hall and innovation area in OCB summit. It's full of companies and consortia exhibiting and demonstrating different technologies. So you can go ahead and demonstrate your technology.
Yeah, and I know Sal has put together material to have up in the booths at conferences that they have been participating in, and we now have the messaging guide. We heard on that last session. So we've got that messaging guide coming out of the rebranding working group. So there's materials there that should make it easy for people to speak with confidence about the CCC view of confidential computing. So that all sounds great.
That's a good idea. Question: how I can access this outreach presentation? That maybe I can use it myself.
Yeah, so they didn't have slides that you could use. They had more or less like the messaging talking points. But Sal Sal or Rion might have a deck that's like a standard CCC deck that they might be able to share out.
So can somebody put on the chat where I can get these slides?
Yeah, so maybe anybody that's listening can drop it in the chat. Or sorry, go ahead, Rion.
Thank you.
If you drop me a mail, I can share you the links to the previous outreach meetings. You can also go see the discussion of the work in the previous outreach meeting recording. and then they have a messaging guide that they're busy reviewing and approving. So that would also be interesting for you. So just drop me an email and I'll share all those links for you.
Sounds good. All right. I do not think we have any of our Meta reps today. So I will send the truant officer after them at some point. But that brings us up to Catherine. So I jump down to that, where I think what we're focused on here was the kernel SIG. Catherine, would you like to give us an update?
Sure. So I don't think we've worked a lot on the SIG itself. I think a lot of the time is spent on accelerating the upstreaming of various CC patches into the main Linux kernel. So I think we're very close with getting the basic enablement, TDX enablement in the main branch. Maybe there are a few left, but the goal is to have everything upstream by Q1 2025. So just I think, the last sprint, I think here. I believe a lot of progress has been made on the GMAM1G page support. I think in the Linux Plumber conference, there were good discussions, and mostly I think the community is aligned on the API, and I think the Google team is working hard to have the patch ready, and so it's in progress. There were also a lot of good discussions on the hot load issue in both TDX and SMP. I don't think we're ready for the patches will be ready soon, but this is being actively worked on, and we hope to have a consensus and alignment soon. And then the live migration for TDX, I think is encountering some difficulties and challenges. I think mostly probably on the Intel side. So there are discussions on how we could get this accelerated. So this is being worked on. I think probably status-wise, this one is, I think, in yellow. And then RTMR patches, I think that there were some discussions on moving a lot of functionalities out of the kernel into the user level. So I believe consensus have been achieved. It's just getting the work done. So not in the main branch yet, but close. And finally, the SVSM enablement, I think it's still being worked on for, I think for KVM. I believe for QEMU, maybe we're in better shape, but still there were some work left. So I think we're not there yet, but this also being actively worked on. So we're making a lot of good progress here.
Good. Yeah, and I don't track that last one very closely. Is that would that be in direct support of our Coconut project?
I think it's in scope with the Coconut project.
Yeah, maybe I should phrase that differently. Coconut would directly benefit or requires the upstreaming from that last bullet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just think it's cool that we can draw a direct connection between one of our projects and the CCC and this upstreaming work. I mean, not that all of it isn't quite evidently part of confidential computing. I could have set this up a little bit more for other people who aren't as familiar, but usually people will take advantage of confidential computing through some downstream operating system, like I don't want to list specifics, but yeah, so any of the downstream operating systems. So we've got Red Hat and SUSE in the confidential computing consortium. And I know I'll leave somebody out, so a non-exhaustive list. But in order to get those operating systems enabled, first those features have to exist in the upstream Linux kernel. And it's always difficult to make changes in that body of code because so many different projects rely on it. It has to go through a lot of scrutiny whenever you're going to make changes. So we were looking throughout the year for what could we do to facilitate making that easier. And so one of the tools that we created was this kernel SIG. So like our GRC SIG or the attestation SIG, it's a point of communication where people can come in to a meeting. And in the case of these kernel patches, rather than just trying to dig through the kernel mailing list and understand what's going on through some fairly dense content, there's an opportunity to speak in real time with each other, put up some pictures and point to things and get higher bandwidth communication. So that's a tool that we've brought out to that sector of the kernel community. And if we've got sticking points on any of the topics that we've got listed here, those are good agenda items for that SIG so that we can help smooth over any understanding issues. And like all of our meetings, those agendas are public. You can add to them. So I encourage any of you who work on the kernel, or more likely people in your companies who work on the kernel, to be aware of that facility that you have access to. All right, back up to the top here. Fritz, who's been keeping us educated with a number of tech talks. I'll hand the show over
just sneakily added numbers instead of X's where you see the 3, 5, and 2 just some minutes ago.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I think there's not too much to say about this one. I'm bringing in the talks, or we're bringing in the talks, not just me, but everyone else has been also contributing here with topics, and then they reach us, and then we coordinate that. Yeah, you all see the results. I think we are having quite a good number of talks, so there wasn't much for me to go out and search for people. But I think we don't have anything really planned for starting next year yet, right? So now it seems to empty up a little bit. So I think I'll have to do a little bit more of an active role now to source talks. I do want us to have some more sciencey talks. I think so far we had maybe only 2 or 3 or so that go more into science or academic style talks. I think it might be nice to have maybe at least 3 or so throughout the year. Kind of keeps the connection a little bit between open source projects that are live versus things that could be cool at some point or would be nice for the future. But yeah, I think that's the inward facing part works well, especially since every one of you keeps pushing talks and keeps adding things there to the agenda. I do have to admit I missed the last week's budget discussion, so I'm not too sure what the current status is on the last point, the outward facing aspect of it, whether yeah, we can have any opportunities to engage directly more with academia, like, I don't know, giving resources or something like that. But I think that's the more challenging aspect of things, because that involves money and us having to present something to academics. So I think that's the more challenging part of it. But at least the inward facing thing, I think, is working quite effortlessly so far, because we have a lot of interest coming in.
Yeah, and what other people won't see is usually every week Fritz and I are evaluating an opportunity to come in for somebody to come in and give a talk. And Fritz does a great job of being the bad guy and shutting down product pitches that would come in, which I really appreciate. There is definitely a space for product pitches, and we sort of divert them over to the outreach committee to find the appropriate way to share information about those. But we do like to try to keep things focused on open source projects and other technical topics. So Fritz has been doing great with that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thinking about next year and what we can do with academia, something that we talked about last time was maybe making hardware more available for labs. And that could be a physical lab that's housed at either a Linux Foundation site, or somebody suggested, I think it was Oregon State University. There's some pre-existing lab. So we didn't allocate specific budget for that because ideas were kind of still in the brainstorming phase. Parallel idea is just trying to make sure that our CSPs that are part of the consortium can make cloud credits available to academia or startups. So that's a related idea.
Yeah, I can spend some time to look into this a little bit more over the next year to see what is useful. I honestly didn't do much more than the discussions we had here. So yeah, it might be interesting to evaluate that further.
Yeah, and I think that the kind of thing that we're good at doing is helping relieve points of friction. What we're not going to be good at doing is like wholesale funding of research, because we just don't have
True.
that big of a budget to send it around.
True. Yeah.
All right, and then we are up to Mingshen and
Yeah, I think we joined late this year, so I put several objective and KRs that I can contribute this year. So I think primarily the main goal this year is to join CCC, and so I think this is the biggest thing has been done, and yeah, this is the second step is to try to figure out which project can be fit in the CCC community, and we went through the donation process of the data clean, the Manatee project, and I think in the last half of year, so with this experience, I think next year we can contribute to the process workflow of accepting a new project, or how to onboard a new project in the community, make it streamlined, and also with this project we can also do some mentorship program and understand how to accelerate the CC project option in industry and academic. So yeah, that's for the clean room. And for the second one, it came out from a TAC meeting about whether we can help with academia with some resources. So I did reach out because I went to several academic conferences in security and privacy, and I reached out several PhD students about this issue and what kind of resources can CC provide to help their research. So I kind of from the user's perspective to understand what is important for the there are some potential candidates that need this resources, but I need to figure out the specific things like cloud credits or hardware. Yeah, but I think I really want to find concrete users to drive our internal preparation for these resources but it's going to be of my focus next year. Besides that, next year, I'm thinking about contributing some attestation project as well. So, but it's still in progress. Hopefully, we can announce in later this year or early next year.
Well, that sounds exciting too. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think it's very impactful having donated a project. So that's a great contribution, especially with TikTok joining sort of mid-year, able to hit the ground running with that. With the academia, I encourage you and Fritz to set up a one-on-one and exchange some ideas there. I think that's an important area that we haven't been really tending very directly to, that we should be able to make some material assistance.
Sure. Thank you.
And for everybody, again, go through and feel free to update this doc so that we can have text available. At the end of the year, we like to issue our end of the year report that goes both to the board, but just also out into the community. And it's nice to be able to say all of the things that we did over the course of the year. It also is, I think, beneficial to each of you to be able to take that document back into your own management and show, hey, you know, we helped move the needle this year in all of these ways. And it's easier to get that report together if people have things documented somewhere. So feel free to update this doc. And okay, so that's all of the TAC members. Sal has also been really busy doing a whole bunch of other things. We're not going to go through Sal's items today, but we are going to talk about 2025. And we also have Caroline here to talk about OpenHCL and answer some questions that came up last time. So I want to just kind of start 2025 briefly. We had these 3 objective areas that are projects, the ecosystems, the things the GRC SIG does, and then community, things like the mentorships, where we're trying to make sure that we grow a healthy and collaborative open source community around developing confidential computing code. Headed into next year, now that you're each kind of familiar with the area that you've been owning, it might be natural to just kind of build on that space. We could also kind of switch tracks, and if it felt like it was difficult to make progress in your area, there might be something else that we could be spending our time doing. So I don't want to overly constrain us by what we did in 2024. So give some thought to what you think would be impactful for a consortium to deliver, recognizing that really the only thing that gets delivered are the things that we volunteer our time for. One of the areas that we've been productive on in the past has been the technical documents that the TAC has produced. So those are things like the terminology guide. A couple times during the last year, it's come out that, you know, maybe these documents need to be refreshed. So one thing that I have in mind for 2025 is going through our list of documents and producing a 2025 version of each of them. I think when a new user comes to the consortium and they look at the documents, if they were all produced 2 or 3 years ago, it starts to look stale. So even if the fundamentals of what comprises confidential computing hasn't changed, there's still probably things that could be updated in the docs. There's probably things that we underspecified that we could specify more. And the process that I'm thinking of to go through those is to find, is to go down our list and have each one of us or some subset of us take a turn being an editor on a document, looking for the kind of changes that we think we should be made for that, and then bringing that back to the TAC for TAC-wide review on those changes. And then I think we could do that with a pretty repeatable cadence. I think most of you were not around for the original authoring of those documents. So I don't know if that resonates with people or not.
It resonates with me, Dan. Share your thoughts a little bit more deeply on the mechanics. You said have a cadence where each of us goes through and edits the documents. So you're saying literally go through in review mode in the document editor and hack away, using our own judgment for what needs to be added and what needs to be deleted, and then have that review be, overseen by a subcommittee of the TAC or the entire TAC or something like that. And then once that's done, then have another person go through that same procedure. It seems like I'm not sure I understand that fully because we run the risk of whoever goes last basically is going to revert the document back to its original state.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. What I meant is, so when somebody comes in here, these are our technical documents, well, a mix of marketing and technical documents, but somebody could take this document, be the editor of it, suggest changes, and then we as a TAC iterate on those changes until the point that we think that we've got the documents, we think that we've got the right set of changes, and then we merge them into it. It's our 2025 version. We're done with this document for the year. Then a different editor comes up and grabs this document. Same process. Somebody basically takes the first draft to make changes. And we set a time box on this because we tend to just kind of cycle otherwise. So if we had a 2 months for each document, somebody's got 2 weeks to kick out the first draft of changes. We review them, we revise, we review and finalize. That feels like about a 2-month process. Yeah, so that's sort of what I have in mind there.
That sounds like a great idea to me. And if there's an argument because too many people want to be the editor for any particular document, well, then we could maybe form a small group to do it and limit the number of co-editors or something like that, so that, as you said, we can keep the committee small enough that it doesn't impede the pace of progress.
Right. And there's one other wrinkle here, which is I think this might be the only document that we have actually in Git-based version control. A lot of the other documents, I think, were just in like Google Doc form, and then they get handed off to the Linux Foundation Creative Services, and they do layout into a PDF. And we have in the past, I think, run into problems where there isn't like a source of truth. So one of the things might be actually extracting the markdown from one or more of those documents and putting it into source control, and maybe recreating images or creating new images. So some of these documents might just have some volume of work that's larger, but is maybe more mechanical.
Great idea. I love it.
Okay, so I think what I should do is create a new 2025 objectives document, and I'll do that after this meeting and send that link out over our TAC mail list. And then the action item for each of you will be to go in and set a proposed list of KRs or objectives. And I'll unless somebody has a different structure in mind, I'll stick with the idea of projects, ecosystem, and community, and start to fill in a few things there just to get a starter list going. Any other suggestions on top of that or instead of that?
I have a question then.
Yeah.
The technical analysis of confidential computing is a white paper which has been published already in 2 years ago.
Yes.
So are you planning to update it?
Yeah, so on that one, I think it's version 1.2 or something,
Okay.
1.3.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
So we've
Got it.
updated it 3 times before, so this would be version 1.4 or something.
But I only have 1.0. How I can get 1.2?
I don't think we really keep a history of old versions. I
Yeah.
know that we sometimes have researchers who want to be able to do a delta between different versions, but I think for most of the audience for these papers, we should just have the most recent available.
And it's available in the website.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Really happy with all the progress people are reporting. And again, action item for next time will be getting your draft objective areas onto paper. And I want to have those, we really only have 1 or 2 meetings left, I guess 2 meetings left before the end of the year. So we want to make quick progress on that. And with that, I'm going to stop presenting and let Caroline take over. If any of you missed it, Caroline was in maybe 2 meetings ago to talk about a project called OpenHCL from Microsoft. And it is a paravisor, so something that's kind of like a hypervisor that provides some specific facilities for confidential computing workloads. I think to be very specific, it's targeted at unenlightened guests. And if you don't know what that means, I'm sure Caroline can answer for you better than me. So Caroline, I will hand things over to you.
Thanks, Dan. So last time I was here 2 weeks ago, there were some very interesting questions. One of them, for example, was about, performance. Like, of course, there must be some performance overhead to, running something within the guest in this way. I'm not sure exactly who asked that question and if they're here today. But I did want to say that we talked about it internally, and we definitely think there's like good numbers that we could publish for people to take a look at. Of course, we get into the whole debate of, what number specifically with what configurations. So for example, Windows is not fully inlined as an operating system. So Windows can only run with a paravisor. And so if we talk about, this is Windows running with OpenHCL, it's like, well, what do you compare it to? Whereas Linux can run as both with the OpenHCL paravisor and fully inlined. And so there we could have like an interesting comparison. There's also the case of like, for example, we could, just talk about partially inlined guests like Windows and Linux with a paravisor, and then say, look at things like what is the CPU usage of OpenHCL? That could be one option. OpenHCL also offers services to guests that are not confidential. And so we could also look at that as another data point. All of this is, of course, very workload specific. So it's a matter of like choosing what workloads are like good representations of things that might be interesting to people who want to know about the performance implications of OpenHCL. So all this to say, if anyone here has thoughts on like what they would like to see in a potential blog that, Microsoft could publish about the performance of OpenHCL, I would love to hear them either here or offline. Also, of course, now that this project is recently open sourced, people can, anyone can do that. Anyone can go and, use this and say, well, for my workloads and on my platform. And of course, this is platform specific too. Like performance might be slightly different for an AMD platform versus an Intel platform, etc. But yeah, so I just wanted to like bring that back here with that information and see if anyone had some additional thoughts, questions.
trying to remember back, just to break the silence here and get folks talking. I'm trying to remember back when the question was originally posed. Does anybody remember if it was a targeted question, or was it just a theoretical question where, hey, we realize that there's an extra layer that's needed here, right? To emulate those calls that Microsoft Windows simply won't understand because it's not enlightened, doesn't know how to communicate with SEDSMP or Intel TDX. So we got to have that layer in between. And it was just an idle observation that, hey, that layer is going to take cycles, or was there some specific point that people were trying to drill into?
Yeah, no, thanks, Alec. I'm not sure. I would know the intention of whoever asked that question.
Sure.
I don't recall off the top of my head, but and I don't know if it's worth digging in without that person here, but just considering that we have an operating system, I'm going to just kind of proxy what the question might have been. If you've got an operating system and then you've got something in between that and the rest of the virtualization system in the host, you're going through an extra hop. Is that the right way to think about it, or?
Yeah, for sure. And there's the transition that needs to happen, and then there's the transition back. So it also depends, on what services you are using. So, for example, if we take something as like a VTPM, that's like a device that OpenHCL can run and can provide for the guest. That's not something you're probably going to be accessing super often. So like, the performance implications of like running that device specifically are very small. But if you're using other services that might be used more often, or just be used for a longer period of time, things like that can affect it. There's also other topics that I think were brought up before, so we can go over those and go back to the performance if people can think of any other questions there. So for that first one was the ultravisor. I thought that was super interesting, and the reason is in Microsoft, we've discussed, we think the OpenHCL is a pairvisor. Certainly the closed source version of that we created 4 years ago was a pairvisor. But are there other pairvisors out there? Are there other companies building similar things that consider that they're also pairvisors? And the answer is I don't know. I personally haven't seen or heard of other projects claiming they're pairvisors. But this ultravisor thing sounds very interesting. Sounds like there's some similarities. But I don't know enough about it, and I don't know if there's anyone who's worked on that project or who maybe works in that company who could like be part of that discussion. But yeah, I think there's that's just one example. There might be others, but I thought that was very interesting.
Let me drill in on this because I'm not sure I follow on the need for an ultravisor. So kind of the way I think about paravisors and specifically OpenHCL is, hey, we're Microsoft. We want our operating system, which is unenlightened, to support confidential computing. There's a gap there, and we, Microsoft, are going to fill that gap with a paravisor. I'm thinking that there's no need for paravisors other than supporting pre-enlightened operating systems, which includes all versions of Windows and then older versions of Linux. Let me stop there and you can confirm if my understanding is correct.
I would claim that is one of the things a pairvisor offers, but it's not only that. So it could also be interesting to fully enlightened guests. It could be interesting to other scenarios, not just guests that are not fully enlightened, because again, these other services could be leveraged by guests for different scenarios. So I would say like that is one of the reasons we created the pairvisor, was we saw that gap, but we also saw that it could offer all these other things too. So like I do agree with your point, but I think it's like it's useful for other cases too, is what I'm trying to say.
Not to put you on the spot here, Caroline, and I'm just
No,
picking
no
it
worries.
a little bit here. Can you give an example of, like, for a fully enlightened Linux operating system, what would be some of the services that might be useful within the Paravisor?
Yeah, for sure. So for example, device emulation is one of the things offered, right? So we talked about a VTPM, but there's also serial device. There's also, UFI services. So if you want to use the UFI services provided by the Paravisor, again, even if you're fully enlightened, or even if you're not a confidential guest, those might be very interesting. There's device translation. So this is where you might want to use a super new, cool, state-of-the-art NVMe device. But as a guest, maybe you don't have the newest NVMe driver. You're used to using the old or older SCSI drivers, and you want to take advantage of that device. And so, what the Paravisor, what OpenHCL can offer in this case is the translation. So you can continue talking to that device using the SCSI protocol, and OpenHCL can translate. And so that would enable, for example, fully enlightened guests to take advantage of those devices without having those drivers, if that's interesting for their scenario. Another thing is like diagnostic support. So there are several basically diagnostic tools that OpenHCL offers, and I think those are particularly useful for confidential VMs because debugging they're using just basically traditional methods, it's hard because, of course, a lot of those methods are, coming from the host and trying to, look at what's going on with the guest. And of course, the host is outside the TCP, so they just plain don't work. And so OpenHCL is something that can sit in the middle. And because it's inside the TCP, it can access, the state of the guest and see what's going on. And it can provide that to the host, but not in a careless manner, but rather, encrypting content if necessary, or checking that it is coming from the right source, that it's not just, an attack or something like that. So it's like those interesting things that like could be useful to other guests.
Mm-hmm. So I, by the way, appreciate you sending a follow-up note to the TAC list. A lot of times, I think it's uncommon for somebody who's presented a tech talk to actually provide follow-up to the list. So I appreciate that. And the blog, I think, answered a lot of things for me. So if people were curious, and you haven't come across the blog, I found it informative, in particular for our interest in the CCC and having a project that intersects here with Coconut. I thought the explanation here was very clear about the relationship, the potential relationship between Coconut and OpenHCL. So it's pretty concise here, and people can find that. And then I also thought it was cool, of course, that it is now officially open source. I think it was not quite open source when you were here last time. And so seeing that actually made it out into open source, it makes it, it makes it something that we can really talk about in detail here. And hopefully you will have some other announcements along the way as the maturation process continues.
Exactly, Dan. I couldn't have said it better. We're just basically very excited that this is just the beginning, and we're looking forward to all the things to come. And all the feedback that anyone here in this group or just anywhere can provide will be super helpful.
Right. Any other questions for Caroline since she's made herself available to us today?
Hey, quick question. So there's a ROS VMM project in Open Infra. I'm wondering if like there's a comparison between the two projects.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would say we're super indebted to that project. Basically there's some great open source VMM projects out there. that are written in Rust. And of course, when we thought about the pairvisor and what we wanted to achieve, we certainly did look at what was already out there. And our conclusion was that because the pairvisor is this very, very tailored, specific scenario where it's not running, you know, as a traditional VMM on the like host, it's rather like running inside of the guest. Taking Rust VMM or any other existing project and like modifying it so much to be able to achieve our goals was not the right approach, but rather we wanted to just create something from scratch. And but we definitely do use and we hope to like contribute back to that project. But yeah, that's the reason why we didn't use that, or for example, Cloud Hypervisor, which is another great project out there. We just like thought our use case was very specific and required basically its own VMM. But again, our VMM does use that.
Okay, thank you.
This one that you were referring to, Howard?
Yeah, I think so.
The
What
Paolo
what
on here and Josh Triplett. Yeah, go ahead.
what is this cloud hypervisor?
Cloud Hypervisor is another VMM that is open source. I'll put the link in the chat, but
That would be
Microsoft
good.
contributes to it, and it's got a lot of really great use cases, but very different use cases because it's not pairvisor focused. It's again meant to run exactly there it is. It's meant to run on the host, and I think it has a very good description. It's a lot of stuff going on. It's also a Rust project, so I would say similar to Rust VMM.
So I can use this hypervisor for my own servers, right?
Yes, you can use this VMM.
Yeah, excellent. Good idea.
I mean, it's a great project, so I would
Yeah.
encourage people to check it out if you haven't.
Yeah, put the link. Put the link, please.
Oh, thanks, Dan.
Yep. Okay, any other questions? Links left and right here. All right. Well, thanks again, Caroline, for the follow-up, and you're always welcome back with new announcements.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks everyone for all the questions last time. They were super insightful and helpful for our side.
Great. Okay, so we're back into the budgets. This is the budget that we took to the board, I want to say last week, and so the board has a couple weeks left to review budgets offline, and then they'll ratify that at their November meeting. And I don't remember the date off the top of my head for that November meeting. I want to say like November 14th or something.
In November 18, it's during the on-site event at the Linux Member Summit. So we were planning to get it voted in before that meeting. So at the moment, as you said, GB is busy considering. The other blocker is Linux Foundation financial team also have to look over it and see that we don't do absolute crazy things. And their response was this look balanced. We just need to make sure that we do not repeat the performance next year because we're digging really hard into our resources, but they had no complaints and said if we get good value out of the things that we spend the money on, keep going.
Yeah, that's a good summary. So I think the lion's share of the CCC budget is over in the outreach side of things because they pay for representation at the different conferences, and that's the sort of thing that gets pretty expensive. I think we've trimmed our budget pretty tightly. There's always a possibility that the board asks us to nix something out of here. But I think I want to just think in a little bit the other direction of if there's any last minute things that we need to pull forward because somebody has a very concrete idea of something very impactful that we could do to provide better access for hardware, for example. It would be good to get that out. But as we head into 2025, those plans come together at that point. I'm sure we can go back to the board and ask for some reallocation of money. But probably the main limitation is going to continue to be that as a whole, we are deficit spending. And so it's not like there's no limit to the money that we can ask for. So anything that we want to do over and above this will require some good justification. All right, any last comments or questions on the budget? Okay, so the last couple meetings of the year, we've got, so like we talked about earlier, we want to get the OKRs roughed out for the next meeting on the 14th. And we also have a tech talk from ILETS. Boktuk has some questions. Oh, you're actually on. So I don't know if you want to set things up for your talk next week.
Hi. Island recently added a new feature about the app provisioning and providing a selling key for confidential virtual machine. So we want to introduce our new feature and receive feedbacks from all of you to improve our new feature. So I'll be just briefly introduce ILET just as a reminder, and my colleague from Poland office, whose name is Peter, will present the real content.
Okay, yeah, great. Well, thank you for staying up so late and joining us live. Okay, and then we'll be off the session after that for US Thanksgiving, and then the very last meeting of the year will be December 12th, and we've got a talk scheduled from a UCLA lab, and they are interested in joining as associate members, and we wanted to get some insight into what their lab is working on, so we'll be hearing from them. I think probably if we haven't finalized our 2025 goals, we'll also do that at that meeting. And I don't think we have any other project topics scheduled. So there is 1 or 2 slots available if there is other business that people want to get in. So feel free to send a note to me or to Rian or to the TAC list ideally.
Maybe one question, because the agenda ends in December. When do we usually restart in January? Is it just the first Thursday already, or is there usually a break?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure if we have a usual. It kind of depends because we've got this 2-week schedule. I don't know if it's always lined up for the first week or not.
It would be the 9th anyway. So 26, I guess we skip, and then 9th would be the first. So I guess just skipping 1 was probably the most sensible option.
Yes, though if people are generally out, then it doesn't pay to have that meeting then. So yeah, that's a good question, and I'll take a look at the calendars with Rian before our next session, and we'll start to get 2025 on the table. But yeah, I think you're right that the 9th, that falls a full week after New Year's Eve, so we should probably be good with that. Okay, any other last questions, comments? All right, well, I think we're going to end today with 30 minutes to spare. So you've got a lot of opportunity to get in any last minute updates to your KRs for the CCC, or maybe if you have other work, I guess you could do that too.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.
Nice work. Good job.
Bye.
Bye-bye.